I guess we can just get started then. My name is Max. I have here my friend Haven.
Hello.
Um, we wanted to talk about nice things.
Yes.
That's it.
Do you like hot chocolate?
I do.
I love hot chocolate. I was saying to you right before we started recording that I just moved today. And in my cupboards, one of the few things that I hadn't brought back before this trip was just handfuls of different kinds of hot chocolate.
Different kinds?
Yeah.
Like what?
There's like an Irish cream hot chocolate that I have.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That's
like
sick.
s'mores hot chocolate. That stuff's amazing. That stuff is
S'mores hot
absolutely
chocolate.
amazing.
So it like has like the flavors of like marshmallows and graham crackers as well
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. There's also like your kind of crappy stuff like the Rolo hot chocolate and After Eight hot chocolate. It's just like name brand, whatever. It's also a little caramelly and a little minty.
Yeah.
Those aren't the fancy ones, but the fancy ones are so good. And if you just make it with milk as like instead of water, then it's the greatest thing in the freaking planet, and I love it, and I just want to curl up with that.
To me, I think that's the only way to make hot chocolate is with a milk base instead of a water base. Because the inherent nature of hot chocolate kind of requires it to be creamy, I think.
Yeah.
And water just doesn't get the job done.
I definitely agree. I grew up where my parents would make it with water. I'm sure it was something to help save money and not just be boiling away our frickin' milk. But as I became a university student and was buying my own milk, I was like, you know what I want? Good hot chocolate. And then I tried it for the first time, and I was so blown away at how different it was. Like, even if somebody makes me hot chocolate now made with water, I still make like a quarter of it milk.
What do you mean? Oh, so you like go out of your way to like put milk inside of there anyways?
Yeah.
Okay. That's I guess that must work well for you, but I can't imagine like blending milk with water. It's like I wouldn't think to do that.
I mean, that's how a lot of people take their tea, right?
Oh, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, it's weird to think of it like that. That's kind of like backwards though. Cuz like tea is like a water base.
Yeah.
But hot chocolate should be like a milk base.
Yeah, because it's chocolate. It should be.
So to think
made
of
with
it,
milk.
Backwards, as if I have this water-based product, I'm just going to like heighten it with milk. Like that's. I guess because the thing is, I've never had tea with milk before. I've only ever had like honey and stuff.
Do you not drink like black tea often, or?
I don't know. I don't know what it's all called or whatever.
There's does it have caffeine in it? The tea that you drink?
Sometimes it does. I don't go out of my way to have like caffeinated or decaffeinated tea. It's just whatever. If it happens to be caffeinated, that's fine.
Right? I go out of my way to have decaffeinated tea. Any kind of caffeine, I just start feeling my heart, and I'm like, this doesn't feel healthy.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. That's happened to me a few times when I've had like coffee, but only sometimes I've had coffee.
I think I'm at the point where I have had so little caffeine that like just a little bit will get me feeling that way. Because it's like that thing of like you have to build yourself like a little bit of of a tolerance to something in order for your body to be used to it. And just with how rarely I give myself caffeine, I'm just like, this is one little thing of tea. It's just a cup of tea, and I think I just drank an energy drink.
Oh my gosh. I can understand that. It's just for me, it's always been like, I don't know. I guess I just have like a really good tolerance for it or something like naturally. Because even back like the first times I had coffee, and I don't have it like particularly often anyways. But yeah, the first couple of times I had coffee, I did, I just kind of like, it's not even necessarily that like my heart was beating faster or whatever. I was just kind of like more aware of it. And even then, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't like keep me particularly more awake or anything.
No.
If it does, it's very subtle. I used to have it when I did live streams really often, so that I would be like at least like a little bit more heightened. I wouldn't get fatigued quite so easily.
Right.
But it wasn't insofar as like I'm going to crash if I don't have coffee. Like it was never like that, right?
Yeah. 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 I was never the kind of kid to like get sugar rushes.
Yeah.
Like, because that was one of those big things. Like, oh, you eat too much sugar, you're gonna get a sugar rush. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm fine. This is still fine.
That's the thing. When I was a kid, stuff like that always felt like so performative. Like
Yeah.
you would see other kids doing it, and it's just like there's no way that's like a natural.
Yeah.
Like that has to be like they're playing it up, right? Like
Yeah.
it has to be that. I was like so aware of that kind of stuff when I was younger.
Yeah.
I also really hated when like parents would be like, "Oh, Max, can you like read this aloud for us or whatever?" And I would read it out loud, and I knew they would want me to read it not so that people could like parse the information, but so that they could have the aesthetic of hearing a young child say these words out loud. And it really bothered me. I really didn't like doing it because I knew I was being like used in this way. Like they didn't actually want the information I was relaying to them. They just wanted to hear me say it because I was a child reading off of a page.
See,
it really bothered me.
I always really liked reading, like anytime that I was asked in class or something.
Yeah.
But that's because I could read like faster than the other kids.
You're showing off.
Like yes, but like it was more like I just want to do this so we get through it faster thing.
Because yeah, you know what? Some of those kids really did take forever.
Yeah, which like is fair. They're kids. They're learning, and
yeah.
like I grew up with a family that was like surrounded by books. So like it just, I don't know, it felt natural or something. Makes a lot of sense also why I enjoy voice acting now, because that was something that I really enjoyed. Was like we had like a readers theater where for kids it was like a really simple play kind of thing, but it wasn't really supposed to be a play. It was just supposed to be read the script, and I was like one of the only kids that memorized their lines and whatever. And I really liked that feeling of, I guess I liked it because it was a little performative.
Yeah. And I guess in that way, like when you're doing things with the explicit like implication of performance, like that's fine. Because I was kind of the same way. I really did like because I was so like kind of introverted, I wasn't particularly fond of reading out loud.
Right.
But if I ever had to like give a presentation or something on like, I'm thinking like really young, like kindergarten, when you would do presentations on like show and tell, like, oh, you bring this toy into school and you can talk about it, like stuff like that.
Something that you like.
Yeah, stuff like that I'd get pretty silly about, and I'd like go into characters or whatever. Like I bring in a Daffy Duck toy or whatever, and I would kind of like act as Daffy Duck in that kind of way.
I love that.
Yeah, stuff like that I was totally cool with.
See, I was the opposite. I liked doing the reading out loud, but I hated doing that stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I really didn't like doing that kind of stuff because, well, I think I was just always scared of being made fun of or something. Where I was just like, I don't want to like say something about myself and then have people be like, I'm stupid.
I think what it is with me is that, and this is still true to this very day, is that I am so like unapologetically cringe that it's wrapped back around being based. And I don't know if this makes sense, but like because I'm so like wholly just dedicated to the things that I like, I can just talk about them and people are like, oh, it's cool that you're like so interested in these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think there's definitely a level of like being passionate about stuff where people come to respect it more when it's like you have this passion for this thing and you know a lot about it, but not just like not just an obsession kind of thing.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking like things that are relevant to me now, like French music history or whatever, like these kinds of things. I've done like a lot of very genuine, very real research into. And you just don't hear people talking about that stuff very often. So a lot of the times, if someone was to just mention that kind of stuff, like, oh, like Guillaume Lequeux, my good friend, Guillaume Lequeux, let me tell you about him and how he died when he was 24 because he ate some bad sherbet on his birthday and died right when he turned 24. It's really tragic. It's an interesting story. But on the premise of it being French music history, if you went into it without knowing those like premises, You just think it's boring, like dusty
Yeah.
old, like, oh, when I think of classical music, I think of Bach and Mozart and stuff. You don't think of stories, you think of portraits, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what my point with that was.
But I like it because I relate to that a lot with like the stuff that I know about English literature.
Yeah.
Like I love the story of King Charles. I think it's hilarious.
What's that story?
Oh, so there was like the whole like it's a whole there was a war in England. This is
Yeah.
Spark
Is this
Notes.
the English Revolution? I know about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Okay.
the Civil War. And so King Charles didn't talk to the parliamentarians. Parliamentarians were like, "Hey, you need to consult us," and then King Charles was like, "No," and then they went to war over that. And then so they caught King Charles, kept him in prison for like 3 years. So he had time to write his autobiography.
Really?
Yeah, which was also like not an autobiography. But it kind of
It
was.
it must have been incredibly biased.
It was so biased and like propaganda and whatever.
Those are the best biographies. I love that shit.
And it was like, I am chosen by God and I am great. And
That was the whole thing. Yeah, him
yeah.
and like Oliver Cromwell and shit. They were all like, "Oh, God's on my side." Like they were so into that shit.
Yeah. So, so he had time to write that, which is still like one of the most bought British books ever.
I mean, it has a lot of significance. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so his execution date came, and the parliamentarians were like, "Hey, you get to have your final speech, your last words." And they like broadcast the fact that, "Hey, we're gonna behead this guy." So a lot of people came to watch the king get beheaded, and then
people wanted it to happen.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Here's all of the reasons why you guys are wrong for doing this, and why I'm a great person, and why you guys are going to fail without a king." And then they beheaded him. And then everybody was like, "Did we just make a mistake? I think we just made a mistake. Guys, did we just make a mistake?" And then
You really convinced them?
Yeah, and then 7 years later, after he was killed, so the monarchy was technically abolished for a little bit. 7 years later, his son, King Charles II, became a king again, and then the monarchy has been around since. All because they let the frickin' king speak before he died, and he published his autobiography like 3 days after his death. So
Wait, who published it for him? Was it his children or whatever?
I don't remember. I don't remember. Probably some people, some royalist people.
Oh yeah.
That he had like managed to give the autobiography to. But yeah, like it managed to get published. His speech got published. Everybody just read all of his writing and was like, "Well, guys, I guess we fucked up." And like that's definitely SparkNotes' version of this.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I just find it so hilarious how they just kept shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, of course. And it's so funny too because his son's name was Charles as
Yeah.
well.
And
So it really is just like you put the same guy back in the lead again.
Well, there's my favorite part is so I've been reading on this one poet. I've been doing a lot of work with this poet named Hester Poulter, who was alive at the same time and was like super into King Charles. And she wrote a poem after his death being like, "Oh God, we're all going to be screwed unless we get another King Charles." Well, you got your wish, King Charles II.
That's great. God, yeah, stuff like that is just so... It's so interesting. Like, history is cool. History is so sick.
Yeah, definitely. And they kept the guy in prison for 3 years. Why? Why did you give him that time?
That's a good... Because that is, like, you know, we say 3 years now, and it's like, oh, 3 years, or whatever. But, like, I'm thinking about myself 3 years ago. I was a totally different person, you know? Like, this is a lot of time.
Like, they
like, what were they waiting for?
They gave him 3 years and pen and paper. What did you think he was gonna do?
Well, I'm assuming it must have been, like... Since he was, like, royalty, it probably was better than, like, a proper, like, dungeon where actual criminals went.
Yeah, probably. But, like, at the same time, it's a civil war. What?
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Hey, guys, you do you. Is this what they call gentleman's warfare?
Oh man, 1600s sure were something.
Oh, I love it.
How we're like speaking as if we're authorities on this subject.
I mean, look, I have a degree.
That's true. That's true.
I have a degree and specialized in 16th, 17th century.
And I may as well. I'm pretty much there too. Like I practice, like I have like an honorary degree, which of course is different from an actual like bachelor's or honors degree or whatever. But
I'm sorry, I technically don't have a degree for another 4 months, but I'm done all of my classes on the subject.
yeah, I mean, you know,
My last class that I have to
formalities.
finish up is an acting class in July.
in July. Why the wait? Oh, I think I know why.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be in a couple weeks, but then they were
Right.
like, "We need to figure out how to make this online. We're gonna push this back a little bit."
Yeah, yeah, that's reasonable. I guess something like acting would be really hard to do in a setting like that.
Yeah. But we're almost there. I'm almost
Yes.
done. Almost done.
That's awesome.
I'm
I feel
feeling
like
so good.
yeah, I feel like every time I've talked with you, it's always been like there's always been like an underlying like just like I can tell there's like tension and this fissure here of you in school, and
I
it's
hate
like
it.
God,
I've
it's
always
gotta be. It
hated
must be like so freeing once you're gonna be done with that.
It's been slowly like creeping on me that I'm like, oh, I'm done all of my like hard schoolwork. Like this is
Yeah.
a first year acting class that I have left.
Hmm.
Like it's not gonna be hard. I'm gonna learn something from it, but it's not gonna be like academic paperwork. And I'm so like starting to finally get in this mindset of I'm a free human being. I've been in school for what, like 18 years of my life, like and now I get to do what I want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What kind of things do you think you're gonna be doing?
I've been learning how to make music recently,
Oh.
which has been quite an adventure for somebody that only really knows music by playing on a guitar for like the last 3 years, 4 years. Like
Sure.
properly learning how to play. Like I've always fiddled around with a guitar since I was like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But-
yeah.
Like in reality, it's been over the last few years that I've actually started seriously learning how to play.
Sure.
But the thing is, because I was such a casual player, it's such a steep learning curve right now for me in order to actually learn like anything about composition. But I've
Oh, so you're
been,
getting right into composition. Okay, that's a huge jump.
yeah, but it has been so much fun.
Sure.
And I've been really enjoying it, and it took me a little while to realize like, oh, like I love doing this, and I don't know enough about it. I know I don't know enough about it. I know I need to learn a lot more about it, but it's something that I'm very interested in getting into more.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear about it. Because it always seemed like, again, in the same way that there's always been this kind of underlying like, oh, Haven is stressed about something with school. It always seemed like you were always like interested in trying stuff like that, but just never like really took the plunge.
I just never had the time. I just because I had that tension with school where it's like,
Yeah.
where I would get like a few months in the summer. But those few months in the summer, especially over the last few years, have been like, I need to get commissions so that I can afford
Right.
my rent, and I don't have time to learn new things. In fact, I didn't even have time to work on my own things. I at
Right.
least had the ability to like do the commissions that I wanted to do and not have to get a crappy job that I didn't want to do. I'm just very excited that I never have to worry about I have school to focus on.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Is that music stuff like what you're going to be like primarily focusing now that you're like not having to worry about schoolwork, or?
As much as I wish, it's something that I'm going to be doing a lot of, like when I need to do stuff. Not need to, but when I want to do stuff of like that I want to be doing. But I do still have to worry about, work. So because editing is my main job, I need to put more emphasis on video stuff because that's how I build my portfolios.
Yeah.
But any like free time is going to be a lot of a lot of learning more about music. Like, I was talking to my brother earlier, and he was telling me how he remembers all of this stuff about sheet music because we all took piano lessons. But both my brothers are older than me, so they retained that information much better than I did because we were very young.
Yeah.
And yeah, sheet music is something that I wish that I had retained because it's now something where I'm like, I know what all of these chords are, but I have no idea what line they go on here.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, luckily that's like the easiest step. I've had people who pick up on that like within like a week or two of like real dedication, so.
Yeah, I feel like I can do that because I'm also surrounded by people that know music and can teach me these things.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you doing these days?
What about me? I'm mostly just doing music work. Funny you mention. Yeah, I've been working on a couple soundtracks for like indie games or whatever.
Nothing you can talk about, I assume?
No, I can talk about them. I don't think for a single one of them I have signed any kind of non-disclosure agreement.
Really?
I don't think so, because they're like small indie projects. Some of them have like open alphas that people are like playing. So no, I think I can.
Really?
Yeah, one of them is a 2D platformer. One of them is a 3D platformer, and the other is an MMO.
Ooh, wow, that sounds ambitious.
It's based on do you remember back, I guess not do you remember, but are you aware of like back when Doom just came out, so people just started like modding Doom and creating games based on that engine?
I actually don't, but that sounds fascinating.
Oh, okay. It's similar to that, where basically there was this game that had like its code was open source, or at least it was to an extent apparently. So they found out. I won't get into the weeds of it, but these people made like a modified server of this like multiplayer game, and it became a pretty big deal. I don't know anything about the base game at all, but it seems like the people who have played this modified version consider it to be better than the actual game. So they're like, fuck it, let's just make like an actual game out of it. So I got brought onto that project because they wanted to use music and sounds that they, properly owned, instead of having to use A, something that is, royalty free, or B, working out the shaky legality of using the sounds that already exist inside of that game.
Yeah.
Not because like they're going to be selling the game or anything, because this is like an MMO or whatever, and a lot of those times, even if you do pay for them, it's not like terribly expensive or whatever. Like, it's maybe like $5 a month or something. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is they weren't, I don't think the point of this game is to like make revenue or whatever. Like, people have donated, and that's where a lot of my payment is coming from, is just like repurposed like donations to that server or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's this really cool project. It's like this bullet hell kind of thing where a bunch of people can like fight against one boss in a dungeon at a time, which is really interesting. I've never quite seen anything like that before. What is it called? Let me see. It's called Revenge of the Fallen.
Okay, I think I was in the Discord for a little bit. I might even still be in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, did I like show it to you before or something?
Yeah, I think you linked me to it at some point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Recently they've been putting some of my work in progress music on their YouTube channel just to show people that like stuff is happening.
I'm gonna need to check that immediately.
Which has been really cool. It's been a lot of fun to like see people's reactions to that. It's been overwhelmingly positive, which is a huge relief. Because some of these, I mean, they're not even done yet. I intend to like go back and like use more like high fidelity samples and stuff. This is very much like just a proof of concept kind of thing. People are already super stoked about it. They really are liking what I'm putting out, which is incredible. I've never gotten feedback on that kind of scale before, which has been a lot of fun.
Are you the type of person that as soon as something that you've worked on is released, you like check to see what other people's feedback on your part of it is?
This has been my first time that's happened, but yes.
So far, yes.
Yes, so far the answer is a resounding yes. Where they'll put out a video like somewhere in the middle of the day, like maybe like 12 or 1 o'clock or whatever. And throughout that entire day, I'll check back every couple hours and just be like, I wonder if anyone said anything new.
And not just said anything new, but said anything new about what I've done.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Yeah,
It's like,
yours is the entire thing, right?
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just they have like like a still image of like a logo for the area it represents, and then it's
Right.
just my music playing that whole time. So there isn't really anything else to say besides
Gotcha.
what I'm doing there. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. There have been people who are like, oh, I don't know about this, but it's never been like the worst feedback I've ever gotten was like, I don't know if this really works for this area, but no one has ever said they're like bad compositions, which is really nice.
Yeah. Well, I am not surprised that nobody's complaining.
Oh, stop.
You'll send me some things that you work on, and I will just go, I love it. I love it. All I want is this. And I don't exaggerate any of those reactions.
gosh.
Like, those are all my genuine, like, I love this reactions.
I'm glad you feel that way. It's definitely hard to like because some of these things I'll be working on for like weeks at a time, and because I get so like in the nitty-gritty of it, it's just on my brain this for hours and hours and hours every single day for weeks. It's so easy for me to forget that like when people are like listening to it for the first time or without a complete utter like massive understanding of it the way I do, and they're not aware of like the things I considered but didn't use, or the different harmonies I was considering but didn't bother with, or the phrase, this melodic line that I maybe changed to be something else instead. All these things, they just don't know about them. And it's hard for me to kind of put myself in that position of these people who are just presented with a piece of music and they like it, right?
Right.
So it's like, it's tough. Yeah, the other one is a 2D platform. It's called Duck in the Land of the Flightless Birds. And the first deadline for that is coming up on May 8th. I think by then, the idea is that all the content for the game should be done. That doesn't mean the game is finished. That means everything is in place for it to be finished, but not necessarily. Right. So that's exciting. I don't know if that's going to be like a public thing that people can try out or not, but if you can, check Twitter, I'll definitely let people know if it is. And then the other one is a Roblox game, because one of my friends is like a Roblox developer. I don't know anything about Roblox myself, but apparently there is a huge demographic there to be worked on.
Man, I remember opening YouTube videos and getting like Roblox ads.
Yeah.
Like, that was a while ago.
What I do know about Roblox isn't terribly positive. But I'm getting paid, and it's music I'm being paid to write. So even detached from the game, I can use it as like portfolio material or something. So in that kind of way, I'm like, yeah, I mean, a gig is a gig, right?
There are some games that have phenomenal soundtracks and are terrible games. So
well, I think the game hopefully will be good. Again, I don't know anything about Roblox. I don't know what makes a good or bad Roblox game per se. But, this is someone I'm familiar with, and I know he does good work, so I'm assuming it'll probably be, as far as Roblox is concerned, good, right?
Yeah. I don't know why I just looked at my Rubik's Cube and went, that's a Roblox.
Well, they have very similar sounding consonants and stuff.
Yeah, and they're all
blocks.
Squares, right?
Blocks, yeah, as well, yeah. Yeah, so that's mostly what I've been up to. That's mostly what I've been up to since, like, October. I've also, been playing video games, but, like, whatever.
Okay.
We all do that.
Yeah. I can't believe I just bought Animal Crossing.
I'm surprised you did at all. I'm pretty sure we've had, like, several conversations about how Animal Crossing just isn't really your thing.
It's not my thing, but I don't have a ton of ways, really, to connect with my brothers. And I was talking with them over dinner the other day. One of them Skyped into dinner. We put a little camera at the end of the table for him. And they were talking about how they and their girlfriends have all been playing Animal Crossing together. And I was like, you guys all have Animal Crossing? Well, I would love to participate in that. So it's just one more way for us to all have something to kind of connect with. So it was less for Animal Crossing and more for like having something to do with them. But then I haven't played with them yet still. but I have played, and I freaking love that game.
You like it? You like the game?
It's so good.
Wow.
I've played other Animal Crossings before, and I haven't really enjoyed them that much, but I'm having a very good time with this one.
Yeah, this one gives you a lot more to do, certainly, than
Yeah.
the previous games have, so it might be something to do with that.
Yeah, and it's so nice how I feel like, well, I really love the layout of the museum.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I'm not a big fan of, like, doing collectory stuff in games.
Oh, that's like the whole point of Animal Crossing.
Exactly, which is why I'm not a big fan of it. But I love the layout of the museum in this one because it feels much more rewarding with just how beautiful, like, walking through that aquarium is.
Yeah.
I got to walk through my friend's aquarium the other day, and I was loving it. It was so nice. So yeah, it's just, I feel like I have a reason to want to do all of the collectory stuff, and as you say, like, that's the point of Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
And I've just
yeah.
never really felt like I had enough of a reward for it before.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm having a good time, and I love that it's also something I can do with my friends.
Yeah, of course. And I think what's interesting about this one as well is that in the previous games, really all there was, like, to do, quote unquote, was just fill up the museum. That kind of was like, but now the fact that you can just have so much control over the way your island is laid out and presented and all the furniture and stuff, there's just a lot more freedom as far as what you want to do and how you want to do it.
We've got Animal Crossing Tycoon here.
I guess it is. Yeah, I guess it is kind of something like that. Which I've heard some people weren't particularly... I've heard people compare this one to, like, building a diorama instead of, like, playing a life simulator, which I can kind of see, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I mean, again, I feel like I have more to do. I feel like I have more purpose in the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want, and I totally get that some people do, but I personally do not want a life simulator game.
Yeah.
I've got life happening, and I don't really want. That's also why I don't really like the Sims games. It's like, I don't need a second life.
Yeah, those ones I've never played The Sims, but they didn't. I don't know, something about The Sims doesn't seem like it would work with me the same way Animal Crossing does.
They're still very different games. But yeah, it's just like, I feel like the only way that I could play a life simulation kind of game is if it was supposed to be of an entirely different time period. And because then I'd at least be able to be like, well, this isn't my life. This isn't the world that I live in. I don't need another 21st century Earth. No, thank you.
Sure. And I guess that would appeal to you, especially as, like, a writer or whatever, because there's, like, inherent like narrative intrigue there, just by, like, exploring what is or is not different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it. That's why I can just, like, talk about language all day. It's like, yes, this word means this thing now, but did you know?
Do you have a favorite word to talk about that stuff with?
No. I don't think so. If I did, I think I would know it, right?
Yeah.
But no, nothing comes to mind for that.
I guess maybe the way I meant it to be asked is, like, is there a word that, like, you like explaining to people the most because it's, like, the most misunderstood or whatever?
I like making people mad with the word literally. Because literally is the most annoying word in the dictionary. Because it means both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
It literally means literally and figuratively at the same time. And people have this problem where they say that, you know, it's, well, you're using it wrong and it's only this way recently. And it's like, well, first off, you're right. It is this way recently, which means there's a new definition for it. But also there isn't a new definition for it. You can look back hundreds of years and they were also using the word literally as a hyperbole and therefore meaning figuratively. Yeah, I just have a problem with people trying to correct other people's, like, not grammar use, but, like, language use. And they're trying to defend language by saying, well, when you use like that way as a filler word, that's incorrect and improper. I'm like, actually, I've become that person.
Sure.
But it's only because they are the ones that are first off trying to correct something, and inherently by trying to correct grammar, while you try to be this ally to grammar by trying to correct other people's grammar, you're actually being an enemy to language, because language is evolving, and you can't say that people are using something wrong, because when enough people use something wrong, it then becomes right.
For the most part, I agree with that. I'm a little shaken, and I'm interested on your perspective on this, because there's something specifically in like music terminology where some things have actual like proper definitions as far as like the physical properties in music they represent, and people just use them for other things instead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to me, that just is incorrect. Is there like a difference there? Like,
I think, okay, so then we get into this whole thing about you have to look at the generalized populace and then the specifications of different fields. Because words will always mean different things in different contexts. So yeah. I lived in a house with a political science major, a neuroscience major, an English major, and a philosophy major.
I see.
And even though we would have conversations and we would all be having this debate, we would end up none of us understanding each other, even though we're using the same words, because those words mean different things in our vastly different fields. A neuroscience major and a philosophy major talking about things like that. I didn't give a specific example in this case, but when they talk about things, it's just such different worlds that it's hard to get on the same like brain wavelength of this is what you mean, because they come from just such different aspects. So in the case that you're talking about, I think I definitely get what you mean by like, yeah, it's technically wrong, but also, and it's good to tell people, hey, so like this is what this means in this context. But it's important to also realize that, because there's, especially with like the way that people can connect online and words just get across everywhere so much faster these days, it's hard to try and have the right way be the way that we want it to be used, because one misconception then gets spread around really fast, and you need to try and think of, all right, this word means this one thing here, but it means another thing in a different space.
Can I give like an example, because maybe that'll clear things up a little?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking specifically of like, obviously there's like softer examples of like the difference between a piece and a song.
Yeah.
But like that one is kind of starting to like chisel away. I will die on the piece versus song hill, but that's, you know,
fair. That's fair.
I will concede that it is starting to be a little bit of a softer difference. So I'm thinking instead of something like motif versus theme, these are two vastly different things, but people use them interchangeably when they just aren't, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that, you know, a theme in a piece of music is like, I guess to put it in like poetry terms, it's like a stanza, right? It's like a stanza in a poem. And then a motif would be like a sentence inside of that stanza, right? You wouldn't call a stanza a sentence. That doesn't make sense, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of my point, is that people just use these words in ways that they just literally aren't and don't make sense to be used in that way. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Well, then they're just wrong.
Okay.
You can still use a word incorrectly. There's absolutely such thing as using a word incorrectly. Right. I mean, that's why we still have dictionaries.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the dictionaries get updated, and then it's people going, well, that's not how that word's supposed to be used. It's been updated in the dictionary. It is very clearly now accepted.
Right. So I was kind of on the right track as far as like...
Yeah. No, you can still absolutely use words wrong.
Yeah, okay. But this difference between something like piece and song versus theme and motif are kind of like different happenings.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I've been validated. Thank God.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're fine. I still get mad when people use some words. I can't think of one off the top of my head, of course. But there's definitely been a few cases where I'm like, you need to stop that. You need to stop saying that right now.
Right.
And I think we'll all kind of have our things like that.
Sure.
But there's also points where I'm like, you need to stop saying that. I know that you're technically correct colloquially, but I hate it.
Well, I guess that's the weird thing is like, it's hard to say when something becomes correct colloquially because it's such a gradual thing.
Oh, and it's such a gray area as well because it's like that's where you get into like the niches of regional colloquialisms where it's like you can say this one thing in this one area, but that's not what that means if you go just like 20 miles north.
Right.
But everyone 20 miles south entirely gets it.
Yeah. I guess that kind of even works like culturally, kind of like what you were talking about before, where like proper like trained musicians understand, oh, this concept of song and piece are not just to say, they're not just labels, they are descriptors given for specific reasons. But people outside of that who just listen to things and don't really think about it too much, they don't know that, so they use them interchangeably. So, two people who aren't like, trained or whatever, this makes me sound really fucking pretentious. Two
That's
people
fine.
who aren't like trained, talking about, Fury Elise or whatever by Beethoven and saying, oh, I love that song, right? Neither of them will detect that something's wrong, right? So it's like, is it correct there? I don't know. I guess technically, sure.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. So bizarre.
Well, something that is coming to mind now that you're saying like there's a difference of a song and a piece.
Yeah.
Is that I'm wondering, and after reading so many freaking poems in my time, like I've used the term piece, work, and poem pretty interchangeably, and I've never been corrected on that by a professor in any way.
Yeah.
But I'm still interested to know if they're as synonymous as I feel like they are, or if it could actually have some form of relationship in the way that song versus piece does.
It might. I don't know anything about writing.
No.
But as far as like music is concerned, there are like synonyms. Synonyms still exist. Different words that mean the same thing. So like something like piece or work or whatever, those are all, you can kind of use them interchangeably. But the fact of the matter is that a song is a piece of music that's written to text, right? It needs text to be there, or at least implied. So when there's, a solo piano piece or whatever, you can't call it a song because there's no words, right? It's a descriptor. It's not just a name you give to something, right?
So songs have lyrics in a sense.
Or at least implied.
Interesting.
There are some pieces like Faré's written a couple. They're called songs without words. So it's like it is just a piano piece, but it's in like the structure and the structure of like how a song is written. It's just there's no words to it, so it's written in the style of a song, so we can still call it that, but there aren't words, right? So in that way, technically you could call it a song because it's written in the style of one. But the fact of the matter, it's called that because it's written in the style of something else, right? It needs to be specified that you can call this not a piece because it's written in this way that pieces are not, right?
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So in that way, I mean, this, like I said, the difference between them really is wearing very, very thin as we are, just about past 100 years where popular music reigns dominant and people don't necessarily have the education that they used to for these kinds of things. So I don't know, the difference between them really is wearing very, very thin, and it basically is only kept by people like me who are classical musicians, a couple jazz musicians, things like this. As far as like something like a rock musician or like an indie musician or something like that, they probably won't care nearly as much, if at all, right?
I'd really love to find the similarities in history of music and history of literature.
I've noticed that all the arts are very, very intertwined.
Yeah, because, well, just like I was thinking of this difference of high class and low class
Yeah,
art
yeah.
as
We're,
they used.
we're of the learned dignity here.
Yeah, exactly. As they used to call it.
Of course.
Because, and I by no means am like, oh, pop music, fuck you. But like, if you went back 200 years, it would have been like pop music. Oh, the low class.
Well, if I can briefly sidetrack real quick, what's so funny about that specifically is that what was pop music 200 years ago is classical music now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like these things, like
Yeah.
genres don't exist. They literally don't, right?
I'm fine with subscribing to that. Well,
Anyway,
'cause
sorry, yeah, keep going with what you were talking about.
I was sorry. I'm gonna go back to what you were talking about.
Okay,
Actually,
yeah.
I was like wondering the other day. I was like, how do you make a classical piece? That doesn't seem to make sense. You can't just make a classical piece.
Right. But it's weird though, right? Because you look at something like mine, where it's pretty like clearly like classical influence, but it's not like enough to be considered classical a lot of the
Yeah.
time. It really is a kind of a structural thing. It has a lot to do with more so the process than the actual output. Because we would look at something like John Cage beating on a tub full of water with a fucking tea kettle, and we say, oh, that's classical music because of the intention behind it. So stuff like that really gets semantic very, very fast. There are like cultural shorthands as far as things like harmonic rhythm, like how fast chord changes happen, the way they happen, the reason for them happening, the kinds of connections they make in between them, the structure of how themes are arranged and how they're developed and why they're developed and all these kinds of things. These are kind of like, generally speaking, the differences between time eras and genres come down to these kinds of differences. But we're getting to the point where people mix and match them so often that you may as well just not call it anything anymore, right?
Yeah. There's been a lot of music that I've been listening to lately, and they're all so very different.
Mhm.
But they're all technically pop music.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how is this the same as this? I don't understand.
Yeah. Genres. And I think this exists in every field too. I'm sure it exists for things like poetry where, once you know enough about something, you start to understand, oh, this idea of them being different or the same in these kinds of ways is so like arbitrary.
Yes.
It's like just not worth considering at all.
Well, contemporary poetry is hilarious because we've at this point kind of looked back at everything that we've done, gone, oh, like we've gone through like eras of mostly prose and eras of like really rigid poetry that you have to follow these specific rules or else you are not worthy.
Yeah. We had that in music too. Yeah.
Yeah, and now we're at the point of do whatever the heck you want. Oh my god. I have a whole textbook, like many page textbook. It's one of those ones that's like multiple inches thick, of contemporary poetry, and one of the pages, it's absurd. It's not just contemporary, but it's abstract contemporary poetry.
That's a double whammy.
Yeah.
that's a twofer.
One of them is the Bible, but all of the words are organized in alphabetical order.
Oh my god.
That is the poem. It's just the entire Bible in alphabetical order.
Has it ever been like performed before?
I don't know.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah, so there's that. There's also another piece that's they took some form of writing. I don't remember exactly what it was. It might have been a news article. They took a news article and then they took a pen and they moved the pen to every next instance of the same letter. So there's a line every time that the letter A is written. There's a line from A to the next A to the next A to the next A to the next A, and then they removed all of the letters from the page. So it's just a bunch of lines going everywhere from all of where the letters are, and it's technically poetry.
That's crazy.
And I personally, everybody in my class hated it.
No, that's awesome. That's so sick.
Yeah, I loved it. I was
So
like,
cool.
are you kidding me? This is amazing. And I love this. And everybody's like, oh, it's pretentious bullshit.
Oh,
and I
fuck
was
off.
like, I almost feel like it's the opposite of pretentious. It's them going, man, you know what's pretentious? Writing actual words. Fuck that.
That's kind of what I was talking about before with John Cage in that bathtub. For anyone interested, it's the piece is called Water Music, I think. It's by John Cage, and it's just him like on a stage. He's got these home appliances, and he's just kind of like doing things with them. But because it's sounds happening at a specified and what's the word? It's like it's supposed to happen, like it's meant to sound at these different times, and it's, you know, implied with artistic expression. We still consider it music, even though, like I said, it's just like dipping a tea kettle into a huge bathtub full of water.
Yeah.
Like, what is and isn't like music or art or anything anymore is just so like, it's so neat. It's so fucking cool.
I love seeing what people come up with, and and the thing is, like, other people. So we had to that poem where there was like all the lines just going freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
We had to sit in a class and we had a seminar discussion. We had to talk about what this poem was, and everybody was looking at it and they're like, it's scribbles. It's just scribbles. And I was looking at it. I was like, this is fascinating. And I would love somebody that's in linguistics or something, somebody with more connection to the knowledge of how our speech patterns work, and see if somebody could actually put together what the words on this page are.
Yeah, because theoretically it is intelligible.
Yeah, it's mathematically possible if we look at how many instances of these things are, and we know like what vowels are.
Yeah.
It's basically just playing a game of Wheel of Fortune. And I love it.
That's a really good idea for like a puzzle or something.
Yeah.
To like try and decode that.
So we had a number of classes, and it's just looking through this textbook. It was the book's called Against Expression. And every class, everyone was like, this is bullshit. I was like, this is my shit.
That's what it is. Yeah, because so many people are so quick to dismiss stuff like that. It's like, that kind of makes it like more fun to be interested in it.
Well, what I was a little peeved about was that it was a creative writing class.
Yeah.
That we were in.
And they were just disregarding like
yeah. I was like, guys. That was before I switched to being an English major. I was a creative writing major at that time, and I was so into it. And my final assignment that I ever did, like my last assignment that I had to do, was taking a bunch of poems, and I took this idea from that Bible poem where they alphabetized the entire freaking Bible, and I did that with the poetry from this one poet, and took 10 of her poems, organized all of her words alphabetically, and then analyzed what I could learn from looking at this list of words.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so much fun, and I loved it. There's so much to learn from just looking at lists of words, guys. I love words.
Because especially even like, you know, even just considering things like thematic material or like how short or long those words tend to be to describe certain things. Like, yeah, that is definitely, you could glean a lot from something like that.
And I learned more than I expected to. Like, I figured I'd learn something, but it was really interesting to see, like, the word that came up the most, aside from like your usual article words, which are like the word the.
Yeah.
The word that came up the most that was like a normal word was the word above, which I was like really surprised about.
Yeah, it's an interesting word.
But a lot of her other words were also religious based. Oh. And then I was able to be like, oh, like she uses this word way more than I would have ever realized if I just read her poems.
Right, yeah.
And it was for a religious context as well. And I was like, this is so cool that I have figured this out only by looking at the list of letters, because I'd read all of the poems.
Sure.
It's not like this was the first time that I was reading it, but I was still able to learn more things just by looking at a freaking list of words. I was like, I'm loving this.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah. Like, despite the fact that, like, I've really had a bad relationship with school for most of my life, I had a really good last semester and a really cool final semester of just learning new things and being able to try new ways of doing things. Like, I only had one actual essay for my final assignment. I got to try really cool things like that instead.
Oh, so was that something you did, like, for class, for a grade?
Yeah, that was something that I did for class. That was my final assignment.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
I loved
cool.
it.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Of course. Was this for creative writing or was this something else?
No, this was for an English class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We were looking at a specific poet the entire year, and yeah, it was just really cool being able to try something so different for an actual class assignment.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because these are things that you can, like, you know, take for yourself and actually apply. You know, that's what school is for.
Yeah. Unlike essays where you're just making things up and you don't believe anything that you're saying the entire time.
Yeah.
Make a point in your essay. You have to have textual evidence, and usually it helps if somebody else has also already made your point before. I'm like, so I'm going to say what you want to hear me say, but not what I actually think.
Right, yeah.
And then I'll get the grades.
I will say, I'm working on a video right now about Super Paper Mario. Maybe I'll just leave it there.
You okay?
No, this whole thing of, like, I don't know if I don't think I've talked to you about this at all, but I've, like, been listening to, like, college professors of, like, creative writing just, like, giving lectures, like, on YouTube and stuff while I'm, like, playing Animal Crossing or whatever, just as, like, something to listen to and also vaguely learn from. And just being in that mindset and, like, remembering all, like, how to construct a good essay or whatever, it's really helping with this fucking video, because it is me kind of looking through the narrative of Super Paper Mario and being like, wait, people always say that this game has a really good story, but why is it good? So I'm trying to dissect that, and I've reached a very, very kind of strong central thesis that is only proving itself stronger as I look more into the game.
That's always so nice.
Yeah, it's a really good fucking feeling, and I feel so bad that I never felt it for my entirety of actual schooling.
Yeah.
Because you just are always talking about stuff that you don't want to be talking about. They're just having you talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And that, yeah. I never have to read 19th century literature ever again.
Have you ever played Super Paper Mario? Have you ever played any of the Paper Marios?
I've played Thousand Year Door.
Okay. That's the only one you need to play.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. No, I really enjoyed that. I don't think I finished it, though.
Oh.
I know that I've seen playthroughs of it. So I know how it all goes.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of my personal playthrough, I don't know if I actually finished it myself. I got pretty far.
Yeah.
I think the pigs scared me too much.
The pigs? Oh, in Twilight Town?
Yeah.
They are kind of weird. They're, like, shaded differently from everything else.
Like, I don't even like playing Luigi's Mansion.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm a coward.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm pretty bad about that stuff, too, but not quite there.
I don't mind other people playing Luigi's Mansion. I have no problem watching other people, but the second that you give me the controller, I'm like, there's gonna be a ghost, and I don't want it.
You know what? There is one part in the original Luigi's Mansion that still kind of freaks me out. Do you know in the second area when you're, like, in the middle of the mansion or whatever, and there's that butler ghost? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
And he goes, like that. That is such an unhuman sound. Like, I've been trying my entire life to, like, reproduce it. And And I can't because it's so like there's no way a human being made that fucking noise. And there's no way it's coming out of this guy. I remember I think if I was to play Luigi's Mansion for the first time today, it would not scare me nearly as much. But I played that game when I was like young, and like there were some sounds that just like really fucking scared me when I was little, and that was definitely one of them.
Isn't King Boo's voice just Bowser's reversed and sped up?
That is in Mario 64. I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because they don't really need to. They have like more resources to allocate to sound.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It definitely was in Mario 64 though.
Yeah. That's just so cool to me though.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that happens in sound design all the time, especially in like older games.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Goodness, the amount of times that I've used the same freaking sound effect.
Yeah.
I've just like done different things whenever I'm editing videos. I'm like, okay, so I want this, but I want it to be a little different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just make it a little different.
That's the thing too. Like even like for those old games, yeah, it was good because you could like save on resources or whatever. But it also just gives you less to think about. Like that's one less noise you need to like make or find or whatever.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, anytime that I'm like, oh, I need this sound effect for whatever video I'm working on, I just go, I'm just gonna make it myself. So I just find something in my room and just be like, well, and I've got a sword at this point. I've got a sword that shings pretty well, so I can make those sounds too.
Does that like damage the sword? I've heard that's not like a good sound to be making.
It's only because of the way that, like, it's fine for this sword. First off, because it's a decorative sword. Right. It's not a real sword. It's not like I'm going to be fighting. If I tried to fight somebody with a real sword with this, they would break it in half very quickly.
Sure.
I can still stab somebody with it if I so chose. But this is not going to... If it damages the sword, there's probably not much that it's damaging.
Okay. So the fact of the matter is, it probably is. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it.
We're gonna go with that. Yeah. Actually, there was the other day where I was like, man, I need this sound of like a shaker. What am I gonna do? And I just went...
Just shake some shit, you know?
I just picked up exactly this. This is my D&D dice. And I just shook it.
Dice shaking makes such a good sound.
Yeah. And I always keep my dice container too. So like I have different ways that I can make the sounds. I can make them in my hand with an open hand, with closed hands, inside the frickin' shaker thing. It's a shaker thing now. It's not even a container.
There must be like ASMR for people who like roll dice.
Probably. If there isn't, we should do that.
Yeah, I'll be on that immediately. God, because I'm thinking about it now, and like, yeah, just the sound of like having it like in someone's hands shaking and then rolled out onto like a board game like layout.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so.
It's specifically the sound. Yeah, it's specifically the sound of the board game.
Yeah.
Like rolling it on that cardboard.
Yeah.
Because rolling it on my desk is not as pleasant as the sound of rolling it on the cardboard of the games that they come with.
Definitely.
It's just such a different sound, and I love it.
I never realized until right now how much I love that fucking sound. That is so...
Yeah. Well, and also just the sound of it in your hand is so satisfying.
Yeah. I've never met a dice with bad... I've never met a dice with bad sound feel.
Yeah.
Like
I just like that sentence ending at I've never met a dice.
I sure would like to one day.
Yeah. Which kind of dice would you like to meet?
I'll keep it classic. I'll get the six-sided.
Oh, heck yeah.
Because like the ones that are like different shapes and shit, like, yeah, it's cool, but just like a little like, I don't know. I feel like it's compensation, you know? Like, you've got this really like well ornated, nice and decorate dice, but it's like you're just rolling that shit. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah, I getcha.
Decorated dice are very nice, but
I love decorated dice though.
But the fact of the matter is, they're just going on the fucking table, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
What kind of dice would you want to meet?
I would want to meet a 20.
20?
Because those are the ones that usually decide my fate.
Okay.
At least they decide my alternate universe heroine fates.
Right. Did you start playing?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember, oh god, when did we make those plans to like play? That must have been like, was that 2 years ago?
Probably.
Oh my god.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it was in August 2018.
Yeah, that's almost 2 years.
Oh my god. And like most people are gone from the fucking server.
Yep.
There used to be like a healthy number, now there's only like 5.
Yeah. Well, the thing was we had trouble organizing it, and at that point, so what I play most of the time is like an entirely homebrewed system.
Yeah.
And I did that because when we were planning on playing, I was trying to figure out how to make D&D exist, and I basically still don't know. So instead I just made an entirely homebrew system and was like, we're gonna do this because it's simpler and I understand it. I started playing D&D that is DM'd by somebody else, and that is my first session that has had more than 2 games happen. I've been in other sessions that die after the first or second thing.
Yeah.
So this is the first like consistent one that I've been in. So I'm finally starting to learn how the game works. I've finally had my characters get to like somewhat interesting points in their character lives where like I've gotten like class change stuff. I don't know.
Things are developing. There's development.
Yeah, there's development of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love it. And I've discovered that I really like spending my time not being myself.
What was your first clue?
The first time that I realized it was when I was like, I was sitting there playing D&D. I was like, we just came from 3 hours of doing improv. And now we're playing D&D.
Which is just the same thing.
Yeah, right? And also, I have 3 recording sessions tomorrow. I'm literally gonna spend my next 24 hours being other people more than myself. Just like everything that I love to do involves me pretending to be other people.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's usually when I'm having the most fun too. Like when I'm doing like videos or whatever, I'll put on like, I'll like exaggerate a little, and it's not like real Max, but it's like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's something that a friend of mine was saying to me yesterday, was like, it's so weird meeting other people like online and then having like followers that only know you based off like your Twitter posts or something. And my friend was saying like, because I know that the you that is out there as your Twitter posts is like only a very small percentage of who you actually are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I've got like a brand of me on Twitter, and it's not my full me. Like I very rarely, if ever, vent on my Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not because I'm always a happy person. It's just I don't vent on Twitter.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've noticed, but as far as like, that's something I've been thinking about lately as well, is just like this idea of like public perception. And I'm not a big fan of it. So I've kind of been waning off, because I don't want to be like an online personality. I would hate nothing more than for people to partake in whatever I put out purely because I made it. I think that's a really awful way to do anything, is to only consume something because this specific person made it. If you're going to consume something, you should consume it because it's good, right? Not because of who made it.
Yeah.
So I've been definitely, compared to, especially to something like 2017, 2018, where I just constantly was like doing live streams. I was tweeting a whole bunch, all these kinds of things. I just don't really do any of that anymore, because I don't want to be perceived as the kind of person who does those things.
That's fair.
Especially because I'm doing all this stuff with music now. Like, can you think of a single time where like maybe like a streamer, or whatever, is like, hey guys, I'm working on this game now. Isn't that so cool that this personality you know is working on this game? Like, it's cringe. Like, it's cringe as fuck. Alternatively, someone you know because they make good things just happening to do a live stream one day, that's cool. You want to tune into that because you know this person's work is good. You just want to hang out with them for a little bit. And that second one is kind of what I'm trying to create more here.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
So that when I make videos like this or do live streams or something, people are not tuning in because they're conditioned to like the things that I do, but more accurately because they know me to create these good things, and they're like, oh, well, I guess maybe it's the same thing, but a totally different application. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And it may, like, while you're saying that, I like was kind of self-reflecting over that and thinking, you know, like, where do I stand with that? And I think that I definitely know that I fall into the, like, there's like the me that is online, and I'm okay with that, but also in the same way that what you're saying is I don't want people to follow me because that's the me that they see.
Exactly.
I want people to follow me because that person, the one that you're seeing, makes good shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I would never want people to follow me and watch my stuff and say, well, this is fine. I wouldn't watch it if it was somebody else,
right,
but because it's you, I don't want that. I want, if I'm doing something that isn't good, don't consume it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like as kind of content like this becomes more like personality driven, people really are starting to like fall into those kinds of holes and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't just, on the whole, I really just don't. For a long time, I was making like personality driven content just because that's what I knew. That's, to me, that's what content was. But I'm like, wait a second, I can be better than that.
Yeah.
You know, in my, you know, hey, if people do personality driven content, that's fine. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But no, so because I think specifically of like people who do like casual streams and stuff, like if you like doing them, that's fine. If you like watching them, that's fine. I personally would never, because that is like the complete antithesis to everything I'm talking about here, where the only reason people watch casual live streams is because they like they like the personality. To me, that is hell. To me, I would never want someone watching my stream just because they like my personality. I want it to be of value to them in some kind of real way, aside from just, oh, I like this person. Like, what does that mean?
See, I find with live streams, that is where I tend to mostly watch casual streams.
Sure.
Because I like watching the streamer have fun.
Yeah.
I really, really don't like watching those streams where
like just chatting or whatever.
I don't mind just chatting.
Okay.
I really don't like the ones where the person is like overreacting to things and like they're getting mad and the appeal is watching them get mad at things.
Sure,
I'm like, that's not, I'm just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's just not my kind of content. Like, that kind of personality stuff, I don't really enjoy watching.
Yeah.
But the personality stuff where, like, I literally feel like I'm getting the chance to, like, with the just chatting ones, to talk to the person, and they're being a nice person. I don't like the ones where they're just being a bit of a dick. And sometimes that is the personality that people like, and because it's a persona that people are interested in engaging with and whatever. Yeah. I like feeling, and it's an important thing to me when I watch a live stream, I like feeling like I am a part of the stream. Yeah. When I watch YouTube content, so like not streaming.
You don't need that attachment.
Yeah, I don't need that attachment. I don't really care. I want to watch good content that I will gain something from. I don't like Let's Plays, for example. I'm not a big fan of watching.
Yeah. Stuff like that is mostly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the kind of thing that I like.
Yeah.
But as soon as it goes to a live stream thing, I care less about the game and I care more about the person.
I guess because, you know, when I do live streams, it's not as if I'm absent, right? I'm still there and I'm talking to people. And in a way, you know, my personality is part of the content. It is like part of the package. But I make sure to be doing something at least like that is itself interesting, like a speedrunner or Nuzlocke or something. so that people have something actual, like real to be invested in and aren't just there because they like listening to me talk. You know, I want to have something real for them to actually be engaged in, right?
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I also think those tend to do a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah, the games that I don't mind not doing that for when I stream as well is because I also, like, if I play Pokemon Puzzle League, I'm never gonna play Pokemon Puzzle League on stream unless it is specifically speedrunning, because I don't see a point. Like, I don't see people being interested in that. I wouldn't watch somebody just casually playing Puzzle League.
Yeah.
But if, for example, like, I play games like Life is Strange on stream, and I'm like, there's not much that I can do to make this any different, except, like, I really enjoy sharing the story with the stream.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, like, those kind of games inherently have that, hey, you get to watch something interesting happen in the game.
Yeah. And I guess maybe for you, I don't know, I never watched you stream that game before, but because of your position as someone who does know a little bit about writing and storytelling and stuff, I think it would be inherently interesting to have, you know, your insight on something like that. It's as if I played a game, you know, that was like focused on music or something. It'd be cool just to see what I had to say about it, right?
Yeah. Speaking of which, have you played like many rhythm games in terms of like music rhythm games?
Zero, actually.
Because I would find it really interesting to hear the opinion of somebody that is like well versed in music and like be able to talk about anything to do with like the tempo or something to do with the music of the song and how it relates to the actual controls, and if it like feels any different possibly to somebody that like feels, I don't have a better way to explain this, but then somebody that might feel the music differently,
right?
Because you know what's happening, technically happening in the song.
Yeah, I've seen some of my friends like speedrun rhythm games and stuff, which is to say they just play it without failing.
But I've always wondered about that. I've always been like, how does one do that?
That's pretty much all it is. You just don't make mistakes.
Cool.
So I've been like exposed to them. I just haven't personally played it myself. And it definitely is like easy because the only kind of rhythms they ever do is like either right on the beat, like straight like quarter notes or something. Maybe they'll do like a couple backbeats. And then maybe some triplets if you're lucky. Maybe like a dotted eighth or whatever. And they're not like it's only ever that. There's never like any like interesting tuplets beyond the triplets because those are like too hard for people to know about. There's never any more interesting syncopated rhythms, even within those kind of boxy quarter, eighth, 16th. Never anything more complicated than just eighths because people aren't, you know, in the know enough to be aware that those kinds of rhythms can exist, and it'd feel really awkward. And I think that's mostly why I've never played them, is because if I was playing a rhythm game, I would want it to be interesting to me as a musician, which it seems like they almost never are because they're never doing anything that is itself interesting, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like games like Guitar Hero I find friggin' hilarious because
you press down on a single fret and you strum.
Yeah, a single fret at a time. Like there's not multiple strings or anything. And this strumming doesn't matter of like what your strumming pattern is so long as you hit it in time. It's been really funny because there's been a few times where I've tried to kind of play strumming patterns properly on those games, and then it'll like input it twice or something. And I'm like, I know that I'm doing the strumming pattern correctly. I can play this song on guitar.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Music doesn't translate very well to games. However, I am working on something. It is a little secret right now. You notice I didn't mention it when I mentioned the other three because it's still like really early. But something around the corner, maybe someday.
That sounds neat.
Something.
I love that anytime that you're like, so I'm working on this thing, my brain immediately goes, You are? What are you working on?
I love that you like put on my voice. I don't think I've ever heard you do an impression of me before like that.
I'm not sure if it was fully supposed to be.
You kind of went like a little further back in your throat and you went softer and you said, I wonder if I was like, you went like that. I don't know. I'm glad you are interested in the things that I do, though. That's sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure is cool having friends that do things. Hell yeah. High five. Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Because, okay, so back to that thing that you were talking about with, like, personality and having people watch stuff because
really
of
strayed away
personality.
from that.
Oh, yeah, no, we absolutely have, but I'm going back to that with me being, like, so, like, you know how, like, sometimes you'll have friends who make things, and, you know, sometimes it's not something necessarily in your wheelhouse, but you might check it out anyways just because they're your friend and you want to support them.
Totally.
I love that I want to engage in literally everything that you do, not just because you're my friend, but also because you're great at what you do.
Oh my gosh. Knock it off.
No. Like, when you support your friends, you gotta let them fucking know.
I guess you do. Anyways, do you have anything else you would like to talk about, or do you think we're doing all right? Do you think we can cut it off?
We're doing all right here.
Okay. All right.
Support your friends.
Yes.
Tell them how much you love them, because they're great, and that's why you're friends with them.
It's true. Sometimes I gotta remind some of my friends about that, because like, ooh, you know, Haven, I've got this one friend who likes Kingdom Hearts. Oh. But I remind them, you know, you must be a really cool person for you to like Kingdom Hearts this much, but I'm still your friend, right? Like I say that to them.
See, and then there's me who will just message people out of the blue and be like, hey, you're cool.
Yeah, you've done that a few times. And I'm like, why did you do this? And you're like, because I want to. It's like, okay.
Because I thought about you and I decided to tell you that you're neat.
Yeah, that's cool. I should probably do that more often to people too.
Sometimes it makes people stay.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on. Love your friends because you love them. Yeah. That's the idea. Yeah. That's the point. Hell yes. I'm feeling good. It's nice. Man, things are nice.
Things are nice.
All right, fellas. Thanks for listening to me and my friend Haven. Haven, do you want to like plug yourself or anything?
Yeah, if you are interested in the things that I do or whatever, you can follow me on Twitter at Havenadian. I would link you to other more specific channels, but I don't have one specifically. So if you're interested in what I do, just follow me on Twitter. I'll post all the things I do.
I guess you are kind of like spread out, huh?
I'm so all over the place.
Have you ever thought about like making a website? To, like host everything in one spot? I've been thinking about that too. Yeah. Anyway.
Bye, guys.
All right, see ya.